Welcome to the 2020 Indiana AAC Summit virtual sessions, but real solutions. Our session tonight is titled Meeting Rigorous Academic Expectations with AAC in Secondary Education. And we are excited that you're here with us tonight. Next slide, please. There we go. My name is Beth Browning. I am a speech language pathologist and I am a senior consultant for PRC in Indiana. I am a co-creator of the Indiana AAC Summit with my colleague Beth Lefevre.
And that's me. And I'm also a speech language pathologist, and I have the RESNA ATP credential as well. I am work with Beth at PRC. I'm the training and implementation specialist. And actually, she and I started the Indiana AAC Summit when I was in public school working as an assistive technology coordinator and AAC specialist. And she was the PRC consultant. And so we got together at that point and came up with this idea.
Yeah, that was, you can go ahead to the next slide. That was about 8 years ago now, I think we met and talked about this idea of bringing together people from around Indiana to network and share resources, celebrate successes. I found in my job as a consultant traveling all over the state that there were teams who were doing really awesome things with AAC and then other teams that were struggling to put one foot in front of the other. And I thought, man, if I could just bring these people together so that we wouldn't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again. And so my original idea that I told Beth was, how about we rent a bus and then we just pick up people along the way, drive all over the state. And she quickly shot that idea down. She said, no, but we can do this. We should call it the Indiana AAC Summit. We need to get a steering committee. We did all of that. Kind of got some ideas. Our first event was held in 2015 at a facility, outdoor facility called Bradford Woods in Martinsville, Indiana. And we originally thought we would be just blown away if we could get 25 or 30 people to show up. And we had, 80 people, something like that at the first one. Oh my gosh, I was totally shocked and very excited. And so, the rest is kind of history. We ended up having the summit every year. We grew in size every year. And, this year is our first to offer an online option because of coronavirus. So that's presented some new challenges for us. Beth, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think I would just say that when we thought about this idea, we could have tried to organize and bring in outside speakers. And we really wanted to keep this so that you're learning from each other and you're networking. Because what we heard from people were things like, I'm the only person in my school that knows about AAC, and I feel like I'm all alone. And we wanted to connect the people who are doing great things with other schools so that they could lift each other up. And then also we got information from administrators, like, how do you work with your administrator? And my administrator knows your administrator. And so just ways to kind of share that information in a really positive manner. And so we've gotten lots of feedback from people that say they really enjoyed feeling like they're part of this network, this community that we have. So we're excited to be able to offer that this year in this format.
Yes. Okay. Next slide. So we would love to keep in touch with you throughout the year. If you are not already receiving text messages from us, you can text the word summit to 474747, and that will opt you into our text list. We only send a few texts a year, so we are not going to bombard your cell phone with these, but it's just a great way to kind of keep in touch with, oh, call for papers is out, or oh, they set the dates, I better mark my calendar, kind of thing. So go ahead and do that when you get the chance. Okay, next slide.
Okay, a little bit of housekeeping. Technical difficulties are not the norm, but if you would have trouble hearing or connecting to this webinar, first thing we would suggest is that you log out of GoToWebinar and log back in. If you still are having trouble, you should probably turn your computer off, turn it back on, then log back in to GoToWebinar and check your audio source. If you've got like headphones, you want to make sure that Windows hasn't played a trick on you and switched your audio setting. And there's a panel on the GoToWebinar dashboard that says audio. You can check that. If that doesn't help, unfortunately, we can't troubleshoot with you at this point in the webinar, so we would ask that you call Log Me In and you have their information there and they can walk you through getting back on. Okay, next. A little bit about the GoTo webinar window there. You'll see that there's a question area, so you can type out your questions. Beth and I will be watching those, so we'll be responding, and we're going to hold questions for our presenters to the end so we can let them get through their information, but feel free to ask those and we'll flag them so we can go back and ask the questions of those individuals. And then today's session is being recorded. We do have a YouTube channel. You can search for us just at Indiana AAC Summit. And this will be, recording will be posted probably over the weekend by Monday. So if you want to see it again, if you want to share it with colleagues and friends, you'll have access to it.
Yep, we're almost finished here and we'll let them get started.
Yeah.
Handouts. So a couple of handouts under the handout tab on your go to webinar little pane over there, window pane. And you can download all of those there. There's also a certificate of attendance included over there as well. Okay.
And you can use that to track your ASHA certificate maintenance hours if you're an ASHA speech pathologist, or you can keep those for whatever professional development you might need. Now, at the end, when you log off the class or when we're finished for the evening, there will be a short survey that pops up from GoToWebinar, and we hope that you'll just give us your feedback. We will look at that when we consider future opportunities that we'll provide. We'll share it with our presenters as well. So we just like to have that feedback to kind of let us know what else we can do and how we can go forward.
Yep. And finally, one little thing on that certificate, Beth, we're getting a couple of questions that people are saying the link doesn't go anywhere. So we will get that re-uploaded. I actually tried it myself and it's not going anywhere either. So we'll get that fixed for everyone. Thanks for notifying us of that issue. One final thing here, the Indiana AAC Summit is proud to sponsor these free webinars this year. Please note that all the content has been developed by the presenters and may not reflect the opinions of the staff of the Indiana AAC Summit. And with that, I am so excited to hand things over to Sammy Johnson, Catherine Brown, and Keisha Bell. We are so excited that you guys are here today to share your experiences with attempting to use AAC with rigorous academics, because we know that's definitely a subject that we need to be working on with all of our kids. So take it away.
All right, thanks. So before we start, we're actually using a platform called Nearpod, and we wanted to give you guys the chance to kind of see the other end of this Nearpod, the student end of it, which we use in our classrooms. So if you are interested in our interactive part of the presentation, I'll pop these instructions up, but all you need to do is you open a new tab up here in your browser, this little plus button. You would type in join.nearpod.com. So I'm going to go up here, open a new tab. When you get to this website, it says your teacher will give you a code to join the lesson. And I'm going to pull that code back up on the screen. You just enter that code and click join. So we'll give you guys a few minutes. It's not required. This is just more interactive piece to it. I'll have my screen shared for the presentation, but if you'd like, please go ahead and join there for us. We'll give you a few minutes to do that. All right, we're going to go ahead, see if we can get started. I'm going to close this, but on my screen up here in the corner, you can still see that code. If you're still interested in joining, the code is VJPYS. So it's always going to be up here in the corner when we flip between slides also. All right. Catherine, are you still muted by organizer? I don't know how to fix that. Let's see.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect.
Unmuted. There we go. Awesome. All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're super excited to be here. We have one of the three of us in some way or another has been involved in AAC Summit or Indiana AAC Summit since its inception. I think Keisha was at the first one. So we're super excited to be here. We will be talking about meeting rigorous academic expectations with AAC in secondary education. And we love presenting at things like this and talking about what we do because we feel like there's so much focus on elementary that sometimes we find ourselves just having, as special ed, we have to adapt so much anyway to meet the standards of the gen ed curriculum that we oftentimes find ourselves not only doing that job, but also adapting up from materials that are really geared towards and designated to elementary schoolers. So we're super excited to be here to talk about what makes our academic expectations work with secondary students. So that's just a goofy picture of our team. Our other two guys are not presenting with us this evening, but that was something fun that we pushed out to our students in e-learning. And, you know, if kids love anything, it's knowing that their teachers have dogs. So exciting stuff.
All right, so our learning objectives this evening, we've got three main things we're hoping to hit. So participants are able to identify the content connectors that can be matched up with some multisensory activities. We will talk about content connectors and what those are. Participants will preview some examples of our lessons and some of our adapted content that we've used to meet our core content connectors. And lastly, and most importantly right now in this time, participants will identify examples of how to integrate technology through different softwares or programs into the different environments, whether you have hybrid students, students in the building, or your at-home learning students.
All right, so first and foremost, we're gonna meet the team. My name is Catherine Brown. I'm the speech therapist for this wonderful group of humans.
I'm Sammy Johnson. I'm one of the 4 Thrive teachers.
I'm Keisha Bell. I am another one of the 4 Thrive teachers.
And we work at Ben Davis High School, which is a large urban school district on the west side of Indianapolis. We service students grades 10 through 12 in the severe special education settings. Our school is about 3,200 students, 10 through 12. About 500 of those are in special education with IEPs. And in the group that we work with, the Thrive students, there are about 45 students who are organized into cross-categorical classrooms. Right now, we've got 9 who have chosen to stay at home for this first 9 weeks. And then we've got 36 hybrid students who are in school for 2 days a week and at home for 3 days a week. So figuring out how to do virtual learning was not an option. We had to do it. And so this is the best way that we have figured out how to do that. So Thrive is something that changed in our district from the traditional life skills model. Thrive stands for transformational experience, healthy lifestyles, responsible risks, interdependence, vocational, employment, and educational success. So basically all of those things to say that we were not content with just keeping students occupied in the classroom. It was our goal to push forward a little bit, push the boundaries, see what they can do, and that's where the Thrive model came with. So those are our students in these classes are traditional life skills students with a variety of significant disabilities. So we have 4 teachers, 13 paraprofessionals. The academics that they target are science, math, English, social studies, vocational, daily living, and health. So for those of you who are maybe not from Indiana or are in the younger grades, there was 2 years ago, there was a switch to a new certificate of completion for students in severe special education classrooms. And it was a shift away from those functional skills and towards more rigorous academics. And when we first started this, we had mixed feelings about it, I think. And then as we kind of dove into academics and all the things you can do with academics and all the communication you can do with academics, I think that we eventually came to see it as a really cool opportunity for our students to learn in the same way as their general education peers. So specifically with those academic experiences, we have a multiple disabilities class, which offers a multisensory experience for our students with multiple disabilities in different physical and cognitive impairments. And then we also have an AAC course, which we'll be talking about, that focuses on a lot of core vocabulary. And prior to the switch to more academics, it was a thematic based AAC class that we had kind of started. That was about 4 years ago. So it was all fun and themes, and my little straight out of college SLP was loving, living her best life, making up all these cool themes. But then when we switched, we're like, so English is the new theme and science is the new theme. And this presentation is all about how we kind of made that work and how it's worked for our students so far. And then that financial statement, we are receiving a stipend from Indiana AAC Summit for this presentation today.
All right, guys, so we just want to get a better feel of who's in the room, and also we want to show you one of the interactive features of the tool that we're using. So this is a poll. If you guys want to go ahead and answer just kind of your role, that'll help us better know how to gear this presentation. Give you guys just a few seconds to finish up, and then I think Sammy's going to share our results.
Yeah, lots of therapists. I like it.
All right, I think we're ready. We're going to check out who we have in the room. Okay, so mainly therapists, which is great. We love to see it. We have some pre-service teachers and also some current teachers. That's also fantastic. I'm a little biased, but perfect. All right, so we're going to talk about our driving questions, the question that we would ask ourselves prior to beginning any of these lessons and looking at the lesson planning. Our first one, we were trying to figure out how to introduce these new core content connectors that were introduced about 2 years ago, and also how to introduce the academic content. Secondly, we were looking at how we meet the individual needs of students while also looking at these academic content areas. Thirdly, we were looking at the grade level content and how we adapt that to make it meaningful, adapt and modify. And then the last one, which was a more recent question, how do we target all of these skills while also looking at hybrid learning and our students who have chosen at home?
All right, so just to give you guys an idea, we're going to go through two different student profiles of students that are in our AAC program at the high school. So we have student A, Alan. This student is on their second year with LAMP and was previously on with us a masked one-dimensional LAMP board for about 5 months, and then switched to having full access to LAMP on the device. This student has a one-on-one staff at all times, just for the sake of the safety of the student and other staff around. This student is considered to be having emergent literacy. They use a lot of symbol-based items to use for their literacy. And then this student also came to us from a residential setting 2 years ago and started with a 4-option choice board. And the 4 options were just preferred activities for the student. Which that student actually vocalizes those 4 things pretty regularly here. So that's kind of a span for how we started with this student. And then student B is Mason. And this student is on their 4th year with WordPower 60 Basic. The student independently accesses materials from natural cues in the classroom. He's considered to be at conventional literacy, so composing 2 to 3 word phrases with spelling. So these are two kind of opposites on both ends of the spectrum here for our AAC students, and we have students in between all of those two students in our program.
All right, so we're going to kick it off, collaboration with the SLP. And I think that this is something that they prepare you for in grad school, is collaborating with teachers, but you don't get it until you're in it, obviously. So these are some of the ways that we have worked together to bridge whatever the gap is between teachers and the speech therapists, because I think that we all had very different experiences in our undergrad and when I was in grad school of what our levels of expertise were going to be, because I was kind of taught, like, you're going to be the expert, you're going to go in, you're going to show all these teachers the glory of AAC, and then I showed up and my teachers already knew about the glory of AAC, and I was like, oh my gosh, but how do I relinquish control of this, and how do I not be in charge? And they had kind of come to the table with the sort of flip side, like, oh, you're going to have to do all this and fight for all this for your students. And so it took us a second to get it figured out, but I think that once we realized, like, hey, we're on the same team, and hey, we all know a lot about this stuff, and really communication and vocabulary and students asking for what they need and advocating for themselves is at the center of every single class that we have. And so I think that that is the best of both worlds. So some of the things that we have done, words of the week are obviously huge. Picking a couple of core words, focusing on those. I think the biggest benefit of that in our experience has been for paraprofessionals, because though we have the background, paraprofessionals don't always have that background, or may not know what AAC is, and it's at no fault of their own, just lack of knowledge. So really focusing on a couple of words a week make it so much more manageable to people who are still learning. And I think makes it so much more manageable for us, because if we're focused on just a couple of words, if it's a student with a new system or whatever it may be, focusing on a few things at a time has really been beneficial. All of the classrooms have manual core boards for classroom and personal use for staff. Staff always has the availability of those core boards to learn more, to practice, to check those out. We implemented monthly staff trainings. We're lucky enough that our paras do come in the mornings when we come in. So we were able to do kind of monthly staff trainings where we taught different skills, taught how to model, all of those kind of things, taught the background behind LAMP, which is our basic communication board that we use, core board that we use. And it's kind of neat because after a couple of years of doing those more intensive trainings, we've had the opportunity to do kind of roundtables where our staff tells us what they need in terms of student communication, which is great. So that's providing access to those different programs on the desktop computers. That goes to the same thing. We've got the New Voice software, the PASS software downloaded from PRC, and then the chat editor downloaded from Saltillo. And then for those of you for speech therapists, this ASHA practice portal, I know it's something that I don't use a ton. I always kind of forget about it. We scrolled through it a couple weeks ago, and just the professional issues, just that basic intro to what AAC is really beneficial when you're talking to people who don't know anything about AAC. So going back, kind of familiarizing yourself with what that is and what that looks like, that was super helpful for me, and it gave me a couple of good, kind of directions to go when pulling stuff for staff members. All right, so the first thing I want to share, and if you are on our Nearpod, you will be able to click this and view kind of at your own pace until we move on. This is just kind of a flow chart that allows you to look at what are the access needs of your students. Is it an opportunity barrier for why they're not communicating? Is it an access barrier for why they're not communicating? And this kind of made a lot of sense to sit down with our teachers and talk about these things, because it helps you figure out, when you're working in such a collaborative way, what can be addressed in class and supported by the SLP, and then what can be addressed by the SLP and then supported on the back end in class. So this flow chart kind of helps, because I see SLPs as figuring out a lot of those access barrier issues, working with an OT, working with a PT, working with an AT coordinator, AT specialist, and then going in and kind of supporting on the back end for teachers and for paraprofessionals, those opportunity barriers. Is it a barrier for practice opportunities? Is it a barrier for facilitators? So figuring out what those areas are, this can really help you identify if you have some of those breakdowns happening in class. That is also linked as a handout in the chat. So the next thing, if you're in the world of AAC, I hope that you have heard of Practical AAC. This is, Carol Zingari is a great resource, and she always has really usable stuff and things that make you think and things that make you reflect on your own practices. So we're going to take about 3 minutes and just kind of scroll through this at your own pace, maybe skim it a little bit, pull a couple things, a couple highlights that you think are important to take away from this, and then we'll discuss on the next page. We're going to take about 1 more minute, so pull a couple bullet points. And then that is not available in the PDF form, but we're going to have a link in the chat, or you can, yeah, link. There will be a link in the chat. All right, go ahead to our collaborative board. So right here, you can go ahead and share, comment your thoughts. What are some things, what are some highlights, some big takeaway points from that article, some things that you saw and you're like, oh my gosh, I had not thought of that, or that's exactly what we're doing in our classrooms. If you've got a couple of those, just toss them up on this board. This is also a really cool tool that teachers are able to use in class. And if you want to stretch it to some of those literacy activities, if they're typing, anything like that. Yeah, core makes communication easier and more versatile. Core vocab that can be used across settings and activities. I mean, obviously the benefits of core. definitely positive. I also had that written down that, you know, these functional life skills, a lot of times we get kids that come in and they have lived in that fringe vocabulary world for, you know, the beginning of their AAC using kind of career. So they've lived in the fringe and they've not had access to limited core, and then are therefore not able to use that language that they have. They're able to list off a lot of nouns, but they can't ask for a lot of things that they need unless it's direct requesting for a super specific item. And that's kind of where our student A, from our student profiles, that's kind of where he was. And he could only ask for the 4 things that he could say verbally. So yes, core words into your son's day. Yeah. Visual. Okay. On the vision impairment, we will talk about Project Core. I don't know if you've heard of that before. That's a really cool resource for students with some vision impairments. Okay, awesome. Yes, all of those things, you can apply core vocabulary across, you know, across everything that a student is doing throughout the day. And the biggest things that I, you know, when I read this and when I said, how does this apply to us? That explicit instruction, you are explicitly teaching the vocab. Next, you're modeling using that aided language input across their day, all day. And then lastly, you are using that core vocabulary to teach the instruction. And this article was specifically about functional skills, but we take that same mindset and you apply it to academics, and it's really no different. Core is core. Academics are AAC and AAC are academics. So anything that we're expecting our general education students to learn, our severe special education students can learn at an adapted level. So sweet. This is that Center for Literacy and Disability Studies out of UNC Chapel Hill is a great resource. They operate Project Core, which has a lot of visual supports on there. I just took this snapshot from a presentation that they had posted because I think this really clearly shows how we have attempted to operate on a day-to-day basis. So these are the 3 tiers of augmented language. So at the bottom, at our tier 1, you've got that universal core vocabulary. And that's something that is like collaboration must happen for this to happen. I came into our setting not knowing anything about LAMP, but that was a system that the teachers that I worked with knew about. That's the system that our AT coordinator knew about. And I said, all right, I guess I'm gonna learn about LAMP. And that was something that we worked together on, and that we decided on that, what our universal core across the classrooms in our building was going to be. That tier 2 is our specialized level that includes specialized core and universal core, and that's kind of specialized and guided by the SLP. So that's a way that teachers can kind of give feedback to the SLP. These are some specialized specific core things that we need access to, and then the SLP can help provide that to students. And then up top, we've got that individualized core. That's student-based. That depends on what a student needs, what their family needs, what their teachers need, and that piece is determined by teams with expertise on the student, on the area, on the disability to figure out what's going to work best for that student. And then that ongoing resource support and feedback, I think that that's the biggest benefit, is that if you're constantly learning and growing and working together and being flexible on what you need and on what your students need and on what you're able to give, I think that's super important. This is that full presentation. That is also linked in the handouts. And this is just a great place to start when you're talking about access for core vocabulary. Like I said, UNC Chapel Hill, their core, Project Core, is just a great resource if you have not checked that out yet. It's a really good place to start. So.
All right, so we are to another poll, and this is just to figure out where you are with knowing where the alternative access standards are for your state. Give you guys just a second to finish answering. And have accessed, some have no idea what alternative standards are, and some don't know where to access. So what we're going to do is break it down in these next couple of slides, how to access for Indiana first, and then we'll look at some of the Common Core standards for the other 46 states who have chosen, or 41 states who have chosen to adopt those. So when we are creating our lessons, we are looking at those core content connectors, and those are guiding us, and they help us to develop these scope and sequence documents, which you guys will see here in just a minute. So, and I know it's a little bit small, but the Indiana academic standards are on the left-hand side, and that's what our students in general education are having their lessons guided by. And then on the right-hand side, we have our core content connectors, which are those really essential elements, those pieces that are very important, and that's what we are targeting with our lessons. So that's how that one is broken down. And then on our Common Core state standards, you're going to see something that looks very similar. So we have on the left-hand side those Common Core state standards that all students in general education are following. And then from those, we have derived essential elements, those really important pieces that need to be covered for our students who are on diploma track.
And if you're not familiar with these, the essential sentiment behind these, or the goal behind these, is that you have a really big standard for general education students, and missing any one piece of that standard can cause that student not to meet that standard. So for our special education students, they've broken this up into 3 pieces so that you can target only one section of that standard, and not, it's less of an all or nothing deal when compared to the Common Core or the Indiana state standard. So it breaks it down just a little bit so you can make more specific goals and have more specific targets on your way to reaching that state standard.
Okay, so we are going to look at some of our scope and sequencing documents. I believe this one is for US history, which is a topic that we covered at the end of last year. And we start by figuring out a topic, and then from that, looking at those Common Core or the content connectors. And as soon as it loads, yes, here is our scope and sequence document for the class. We looked at, well, you guys were on fast, I love that. We looked at our content connector, that's where we started with all of this. And then from that, we were able to we looked at our standard and our content connector, which then led us to a topic or focus. Now you guys will see the numbers next to all of our topics or focus, and that was just page numbers, which we were going from a US history book that we were able to access from the school building, and that kind of helped to guide us. On the right-hand side, you see what weeks we're working with, but these lessons are geared to meet those content connectors. And then as we move through, you see that we've broken it down by week or set of weeks to cover all of the topics. And in just a minute, we're going to go into the lessons and show you exactly how we modified and adapted this material to make it more meaningful. Because right now, looking at it, I can see where that would be challenging to kind of understand the relevancy. So take a second, look at this document. You guys will have, oops, sorry. And the link is also in the PDFs if you guys want to download that or keep it just for your own reference. All right.
All right, so feeding off of that scope and sequence document, like we said, that's always our starter. That's the first thing we do at the beginning of a semester. We sit down with our content we're covering and try to create that and try to plan out the weeks. Obviously, as you all know, lessons don't go nearly as they're planned. So we've kind of plotted some extra time in some of those units because, as you could see, they were quite heavy, a lot of stuff to cover. So some of the instructional strategies that we use when we create our lessons is obviously additional visual supports. We use symbol sticks. I know some people use lesson picks, but we use symbol sticks for our visual supports in our lessons, and you'll see that in a sample one. The other thing that we emphasize in every single lesson across all of our classrooms is capitalized core words in our presentations, or we core it out is what we say. But you'll see that on our slides that if it's a core word, and when we're thinking core, we're thinking back to that lamp board like Catherine had mentioned. We have a large manual lamp board in everybody's room. We use those capitalized core words, and that's for our sake and to show our staff kind of the words that they should emphasize so that they can easily find on student devices. So as we're going through a lesson, if it's a word that's capitalized, it reminds us to model that on our big board, which then shows the staff how to use it. So the students may also get something out of it if they're recognizing that, and it's also been very beneficial for our students at home who are working with their parents, and we've told parents and had YouTube videos that we've put up where we say, hey, this is how you work with core words. If you see a word that's in all caps, this is why it's in all caps, and this is how you can model on their device with it. So we emphasize those core words heavy. We also reference materials and resources, like Keisha said, from our gen ed classes if they're available. So we got lucky for our US history. We found a textbook that I don't even know if it was the current one. It might have been the past one, but we always ask for the textbooks. Or we get in touch with those gen ed teachers and we're like, hey, do you just have an outline for what order you even go in? Because all the core content connectors are crazy. There's so many, we didn't know how to put in order. So our first step was getting a hold of those gen ed teachers, seeing which order they taught it in. And then from there, we identified the topics of focus or the main big ones we wanted to hit and kind of eliminating extra overwhelming information in the presentations. And you'll see that in one that we look at shortly, that there's a lot in US history. So we simplified it down, cored it out for all of our students to make it more accessible, more manageable for them to learn. So here is a sample of one of our lessons that we taught for social reform, and we talked about the different types of social reform. Like you can see, different is in all caps. I think it was our word of the week for the start of this one at least. And then as you can see below, work and what were our other words of the week. By the time we had gotten through this unit, took a while. So work and what, we tried to change these out every week with the word of the week so that we could emphasize it. And to start the class, it was always, all right, staff and students, let's review, let's find them in our devices, because obviously not all students are using lamps. So it gave us an opportunity to let them find it within the different programs that were being used. On each slide, like I said, we got rid of a lot of extra information and we cored it out. So what is social reform? It is when a big amount of people in the community want to make a big change. So we simplified it. And we said the community wants to make things different. And we also, like you can see here in the corner, we have symbol 6. So as we would model on the board with our all caps words and ask our staff to model, it was also another point of comprehension for students to say, okay, we want many people want a change. Let's find that symbol on our page, put your finger on it. So just that visual support, that extra emphasis on it. We have a lot of slides. So we based this lesson off of a timeline, kind of looking at the different types of social reform to make it a little more manageable, because as you can see, there are lots of different social reform ideas. So we wanted to kind of break it down into a timeline, and each 2 or 3 days we would work on one and then we'd move on to the next one. So it's kind of cool for the students to see us moving through the timeline, just another visual support for it. So there was a lesson. That was a really long one. That one took a long time. But like we said, those visual support just help them. Go ahead, Keisha.
Just to also give some additional visual support, we offered a guided note section for some of our students during this, where they were able to follow along and select the same image And then that offered another opportunity for staff to give that prompt for which one looks the same, and also go over the content on each of the picture options as they were going through. So just a quick comprehension check as we're moving through each of the slides.
All right, we're going to show you another sample from one of our lessons. So this was still U.S. history. This was our sectionalism one, which we honestly sat down and we were like, how are we even going to tackle this? This is hard to put into words and separate it into smaller sections. So we basically picked the topics that the different sections of our country were feeling or having different opinions on, and we broke those up into our main topics. So different feelings on taxes, different feelings on banks and canals, different feelings on slavery, different feelings on the Western land and Native Americans. So from there, once we broke it up into our main four, we did for each one how the North feels, how the South feels, and how the West feels. This made it really simple, and we also had a guided notes section for this, which helped the students a lot. We took a whole day on each section. So taxes, I think, took a whole entire class period just emphasizing and getting them through those guided notes with those picture supports that were also on our slides. So it was a lot of find the same. We're talking about how they want more taxes. Let's find that and put that on our notes. So this was just another example of our U.S. history unit. It has a lot of words on it, but with those core, it helps us kind of simplify it down. And we obviously discussed much more into it as we could, depending on the student. So this worked for like our students, like our student A that has that one-on-one staff that needs that support, that needs those visuals constantly, but it also worked for our student B who could in that class be more of a peer model almost and finish his notes quickly and turn to his peers and help. Oh, and he even turned a few times to his peers with their device and said, oh, I found want more here. Where is it on yours? And that was a great setup in AAC, kind of having that broad range of students that some of them did turn to peer models and started modeling with their devices to show other students where they found it on theirs.
And I think these, sorry, go ahead, Keisha.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I will also say that as we are prompting the modeling with staff kind of inside of the classroom, it is a never-ending battle, just trying to make sure that we're remembering to get this core word modeled or, focus on the sentence that we're having. So I don't know how many times a day we say this is a great opportunity to model as we model up front, and hope that is modeled up front. Sometimes it takes you going over modeling for the staff so that they can model for the student, but it is definitely something that you have to stay on top of.
And that's where your words of the week can absolutely help you, because I would go in on Monday morning when we were doing our trainings and I said, I don't care if you don't model a single other thing this week than these two words. And then we'd throw them a bajillion times into these, and that kid would get, 8 million exposures to want, and which want's not a good example because that's like the go-to core word, but like feel and different. And I think that these lessons are a really great example of how those same words that we use to teach functional skills, right, can be used in academics. So different feelings on, so what are some different feelings? Did they feel happy about paying taxes? Did they feel angry about paying taxes? Did they feel frustrated about paying taxes? And it still has the ability to work into that U.S. history class, as opposed to just saying, oh, what are our feelings? Because we're, a feeling circle or feelings, there's a time and place for that. But when you're being asked to cover academics, it's definitely something that is able to be worked in, and I think that that's the biggest takeaway, and that's what we hope you leave here knowing, is that it's not insurmountable, and the academics with these students are not insurmountable, and you're not going to lose modeling opportunities by teaching academics.
Yeah. On our next slide, we don't have a ton of time, so we're going to be able to make this presentation available for you guys to look at your own pace at another time. We dropped in one of our unit folders for U.S. history, so it's got different folders for different sections that we talked about. It's got some of our pre-tests and post-tests. You can see some of the guided notes in there, so you guys have access to that. It's a view only. We just wanted to share with you guys kind of how we built the whole unit and use those slideshows that we made to make the guided notes, and then use the pre-tests and post-tests to work and try to see. And then, I mean, scores went up and students understood. Granted, they obviously did a lot better if we quizzed every few days, because like we said, that's a lot of content to cover. But you can click through those kind of at your own pace if you'd like, and we have the opportunity for you guys to sign up for that in a minute.
All right, guys, on this one, you can share your email with us if you want a student-paced version of this presentation, and that will be active for about 30 days. So you can take your time, go through it, download what you need, screenshot what you need, but you also have access to the entire presentation in PDF form under the handout section. And then you can also email us with any questions, or email us with any questions that you have after you receive that email of the PDF version.
Guys, we do have a question again about accessing Nearpod, if you want to talk about that again.
Yeah, so with Nearpod, so right now I started our presentation, so I am the presenter for the Nearpod. As the teacher or the presenter, I send out that code, and the students, our students all have Chromebooks as of this year, and we bookmarked on all their Chromebooks at the beginning of the year Nearpod. So they all know how to open up, they've all got their logins. They get into Nearpod and they just click a button and they type in that code. So at the beginning of every class, when they walk in, all of our screens usually already have pulled up the code. They know to sit down, get their Chromebooks out, get logged in, ask for help needing logging in, and then they just enter. I mean, this screen pops up really simply. They type that code in, and then from there, as you've seen through this presentation, I have control over the slides. So as a student, you can't click back and forth between slides, which we have a lot of difficulty with if we just do it in Google Slides, that students are flipping ahead or adding things to it or deleting a slide or whatever it is. That this, we have a lot more control. We are able to split those slides. We are also, like you've seen, been able to add interactive features to it. So polls and multiple choice questions we can add, and drawing pages. So circle your answer or draw a line to the correct answer. We can do matching pairs. We can drop videos into it, which you can also, in the video, which is a new feature for Nearpod, you can add questions into the video. So it will show the video and stop at a certain point. It'll ask a question. It shows you student answers as they're putting it in, and then you're able to share the correct answer, talk about it, and then press play to move on. So we've really enjoyed it, and it works really well because we can do our synchronous lessons for our students in the classroom. And if we have our hybrid students join us via our Google Meet, we can send them the code at home and they're able to participate synchronously with us. And then if they were not able to make it, or we have students that don't get on the Google Meet, then we just send them an asynchronous version and they can do it at their own pace with the student paced option on it.
Sammy touched a little bit about being able to upload videos and add those interactive features. One of the coolest things, I think, is that we can add the videos that we've made and put on our YouTube channel. And not only are the students able to see us doing and that has been probably one of the things.
Yeah. All right.
People want to know if Nearpod is free.
So there is a free version. The version that we have, we actually paid for a license for the four of us. It was a year-long version of it. I think the main difference is that you can run multiple live sessions out of the same unit or the same lesson at once. So if I'm teaching a lesson in my room, Keisha can open it in her room, Connor can open it, and so we can all have one, but they're all different sessions so that Keisha's not controlling the slides in my room and vice versa. So with the paid version, you can do that. I think the paid version also provides just more storage on it. I think most of the rest of the features are available though. You can record audio over slides, which has helped a ton for those asynchronous lessons that we're able to just record our audio and what we're saying, and then just send it out to our kids at home, and they hear us talk through the instructions for the activity. I do know that there's also something similar on Google Slides. You can get the Pear Deck, P-E-A-R, like the fruit, the Pear Deck extension, and it's pretty similar to Nearpod. It also has a free version and a paid version. We just started exploring. We just kind of found out about it a few days ago. But it looks pretty similar. You can send out the code and have the teacher control the lesson, and you can add interactive features into it. So we haven't really looked too far into Pear Deck and how much the free version offers versus the paid version, but that might be another option if your school is on the Google Suite. Our school is, but we didn't know about it until just now. But we use Nearpod actually in college, and we came up with the idea at the beginning of the school year to use it for our virtual classes.
We had a couple other questions that came in pretty early on. One is, what symbol set did you decide to use for the manual core boards for classroom and staff use?
Yeah, so our big core boards are, well, we have a couple options. Every classroom has a big lamp board. In the classroom that is running the AAC specific class, there is also a word power board. I forget which exact specs it is, but it is one of the word power boards. And then for like small individual size, I try to get a static version of every student's device that we have. I'm a little bit behind on some of the customized. We've got a kiddo on cough drop. We've got a kiddo with a super specific My Chat 15. So the ones that have more specific, a lot of the needs-based, sensory-based, request-based devices, I don't have those core boards readily available, but any student who's on a basic touch chat with word power setup, lamp setup, I have all of those options in the classrooms.
Okay.
And then we did have another question, again, came in kind of early. It says, do you have any guidance for a student who has cortical visual impairment that impacts his AAC usage, as it causes visual fatigue, but he needs more expressive language options to match his receptive language and cognitive interests? He's using LAMP full, but limited words seen on the first page spaced out with a black background.
Yeah, Beth, you could probably answer this better than we can.
Yes.
I think that Project Core is a great place to start if you just need some. They have some tactile symbols. Those are options. As far as LAMP goes, I was going to say, yeah, messing with the settings, finding out what works best for them. Yeah, Beth.
We also have a version of LAMP called LAMP VI, which stands for visually impaired, that was actually designed specifically for individuals with vision impairment. That is available on our Accent product line. You cannot get it in the iOS app. So if you're interested in exploring the LAMP VI, there's actually a course that you can take, and I'll chat out the URL for signing up for that course. Hang on one second.
So that one's the one, not just LAMP with a black background. It's actually like,
yes, there's like a tactile key guide that goes with it and everything. So it has tactile markers for individuals with vision impairment. Yeah.
You can also do some audio cueing setup that your SLP or a Beth-like person might be able to help you out with some of the audio cues to help overcome that vision barrier.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, why don't we move on, finish our slides here because we're about out of time. So I just have a few things to finish up. We want to remind you guys that we have one more guest webinar in our Indiana AAC Summit 2020 virtual sessions. So October 8th, we have secondary literacy instruction for students with complex communication needs. We're going to welcome Sammy back. and their colleague Connor will be with her. So we still have openings. If you'd like to sign up for that, please do so.
Yeah, so this was kind of a highlight of the AAC class. That'll be a highlight of the multiple disabilities class. So I gave a little spoiler in here.
And we want to thank our great presenters today. A lot of really good information. And I think just the fact of using Nearpod was something that was new to a lot of us. So we got to see some interactive pieces there. And that's a great option as well for us to know those things are available. So we're really happy to host you guys, and you were able to share that information with us.
We appreciate having you as part of the Summit family. You guys have been with us for a long time, so we really appreciate that. Okay, so thanks again for attending, everyone. We are hopeful and prayerful that we will be live and in person in 2021. You can email us if you have any questions at inaacsummit@gmail.com. And we hope to see you next week at the next, or sorry, not next week, the week after next, at the next session.
And again, we'll look for the recording of this great session, which will be in our YouTube channel probably by Monday.
All right.
Oh, well, I don't see any other questions.
Nope, lots of awesome presentation. Thanks for your info. Thanks, everyone. Great presentation. Lots of good feedback. So
we're always down for emails. If you have any questions for us, we're down to share, collaborate. That's what the AAC Summit is for, right? Bringing all of us folks together. So if you guys need anything, email any of us and we'd be happy to help.
Great. All right, guys, remember there's a survey when we log off here. Please take that for us to give us some information. And everybody have a great evening.
Okay, bye.